going nuts? And as you see there, it's a side-by-side picture of JD Vance and Erika Kirk. The implication being, well, they do kind of look alike.
Am I going nuts? That is the question flooding the internet right now, as a side-by-side picture of JD Vance and Erika Kirk goes viral. The implication isn't just that they look alike, it's that they might share a secret past that has been scrubbed from the history books. What if Erika Kirk and JD Vance didn't just happen to cross paths in politics later in life? What if their connection runs way deeper than anyone ever imagined? A shocking new theory suggests they might have actually grown up together, not as strangers, but almost like siblings inside an off-grid, breakaway community in Ohio, completely outside the system. We're talking.
I do see some similarities of my husband in JD and Vice President JD Vance. I do.
No public records, no childhood documentation, and reportedly, even official IDs that didn't appear until much later. It sounds like fiction, right? But when you combine this with the viral footage of their intimate behavior at recent events and Erika's sudden, polished rise to power after Charlie Kirk's tragedy, the joke stops and the serious questions begin. Did two figures with such mysteriously similar backstories just accidentally end up at the top of the same movement? Or has this alliance been in the works for decades? Buckle up, because we are diving into the rabbit hole of the Ohio theory. What if the political alliance we see today between Erika Kirk and JD Vance isn't new at all? What if it's the result of a bond formed years ago in a place that technically didn't exist on paper?
And you have amazing role models like JD Vance, our vice president.
Some online users are now claiming they might have actually grown up together, not as strangers meeting at a fundraiser, but almost like siblings inside an off-grid breakaway community in Ohio, completely outside the system. No public records, no standard childhood documentation. Reportedly, even their official IDs didn't appear until much later in life. It sounds unbelievable, right? It sounds like the plot of a movie. But when people started piecing things together, looking at the timelines, the locations, and the gaps in their histories, the joke stopped and the serious questions began. Viewers started saying, "Wait a second, something here doesn't add up." This theory has spread fast because people keep circling back to one central question. How do two figures with such oddly similar backstories, mysterious childhoods, and major political alignment end up this connected? Unless, of course, there's more going on behind the scenes. Now, to be totally fair, there's no verified evidence like a shared yearbook photo, just online speculation and comparisons that people have been debating like wild. Still, once you hear it, you can't help but wonder. Let's unpack why people are even saying this in the first place. Both Erika Kirk and JD Vance come from Ohio. Nothing strange there, it's a big state. But what is strange is how blurry Erika's early life seems to be. Her childhood background feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. There is no consistent trail of her past before she suddenly appears connected to power, influence, and wealth. It's as if she materialized fully formed, ready for the spotlight. And then you've got J.D. Vance, the man who wrote Hillbilly Elegy. He painted this vivid picture of a rough, unstable childhood filled with chaos and hardship. But even with everything he revealed in that book, there are still strange blanks in his story that people can't quite explain. Gaps in the timeline, shifts in his narrative. And now, online users are starting to wonder, what if those missing parts of his past actually link up with Erika's in ways no one ever expected? Some are even claiming that Erika's own background might be incomplete because certain details were never meant to exist on paper at all. According to these online theories, both she and JD could have grown up in the same secluded, religious-style community in Ohio. The kind that stays completely off-grid, out of public records, and away from government documentation. No standard birth certificates issued at hospitals, no regular school history, and social security numbers that reportedly didn't appear until years later when they needed to enter the real world. If that sounds extreme, it's because these kinds of off-the-map communities do exist, especially in that region. Small groups that stay closed off, isolated, and leave behind almost no trace until members step into the public eye as adults. That's why when people mention false paperwork or scrubbed histories, what they're usually hinting at are late-issued identities and clean records created once someone finally re-enters society. It's a way to explain why someone has no digital footprint before a certain year. Maybe it's all coincidence. Maybe they just happen to look alike and come from the same state. But when fans noticed how close Erika and JD seem now, things went from curious to explosive. Especially after that hug. Yes, that hug at the TPUSA event. That's what really sent the internet into overdrive. Imagine the scene. Erika shows up rocking leather pants, styled head to toe, clearly making a statement. She isn't hiding in the back. She is owning the room. Cameras are flashing, the crowd is watching, and there's JD Vance standing right there beside her. But it wasn't just a friendly, polite colleague hug. She leaned in close, brushed her hand through his hair, and stayed there a second too long. The whole exchange felt way too natural, too familiar. It was the kind of moment that instantly makes people pause and replay the clip twice. One comment under the post said, "Could someone explain that hug?" And that single line blew the whole situation wide open. Suddenly, people weren't just seeing two political allies saying hello. They saw warmth. They saw history. Maybe even chemistry. And considering this happened only weeks after her husband's passing, the internet went wild with opinions. Now, to be fair, no one's saying she shouldn't smile again. Grief isn't a prison, but the timing? It did feel fast. Like, really fast. The kind of fast that makes people whisper even if they won't say it out loud. That's when the dating talk exploded. Some online voices began hinting that maybe Erika and JD's bond went deeper than friendship, maybe even longer than anyone realized. Others quickly pushed back, defending them, saying folks were overanalyzing things. They pointed out how people from the same region can share similar looks and traits. "Relax," one user said. "Ohio and nearby states just have that familiar vibe." Fair point. But when you look at the bigger picture, it's not just about appearances anymore, because these two have already been publicly linked before, especially after Erika hosted Nicki Minaj. That's when everything took another unexpected twist. Nicki herself jumped in, and in classic Nicki fashion, threw out a wild line calling JD Vance an assassin. Whether she meant it literally, metaphorically, or just as dramatic flair, fans grabbed that quote and ran with it. It only fueled what was already spreading online. New waves of speculation, comment section theories, and late-night TikToks connecting dots that may or may not even exist. But once that theory hit the internet, it refused to fade away. It stuck around, echoing across every platform. And then came the so-called AI interview. A parody clip began making the rounds. And let's be real, satire only lands when it touches something that already feels believable. In this fake interview, Erika was portrayed as cold, irritated, detached. And the wild part? People weren't laughing. They were saying, "Wait, why does this actually feel real?" That's when things got eerie. Because when parody starts to feel accurate, it usually means public perception has already hardened. The line between mockery and truth starts blurring. And that's exactly what happened here. People started looking at the real Erika and wondering if the parody version was actually closer to the truth than the grieving widow version she was presenting. Then came the big debate about grief itself. People grieve differently, and yes, that's absolutely true. Some cry in silence, some stay busy, some pour everything into work. But Erika's reaction? The fireworks? The music entrances? The merch tosses? It had people blinking in disbelief because instead of quiet mourning, it came off more like a performance, like a show. And that's what sparked confusion. Again, no one's saying how she should grieve, but viewers were reacting to what was playing out right in front of them. It felt less like a funeral and more like a campaign launch. And if she and JD Vance really do share a secret past, if they really are siblings in arms from a lost childhood, then his presence by her side during this rebrand makes a lot more sense. He isn't just a political ally, he's family, or maybe something even closer. Then came the part that really shook people. Erika publicly forgave the man accused of ending her husband's life before there was even a conviction. That moment stunned everyone. Forgiveness is deeply personal, even sacred. But doing it so soon, in front of cameras, before any verdict, felt rushed to many, like she'd skipped a few emotional steps to get to the closure headline. And just when everyone thought things couldn't get any messier, the energy around Erika shifted completely. Suddenly, every move she made started getting dissected under a microscope. Her posts, her outfits, her tone, all of it turned into fuel for endless theories. What used to be admiration started to feel like fascination mixed with suspicion, because people were no longer just watching a grieving woman rebuild her life. They were watching a character who looked like she'd stepped straight into a PR campaign. After that public forgiveness moment, things got louder. Erika began showing up everywhere. Political conferences, interviews, charity events, all polished and camera-ready. The woman who once seemed private and faith-driven was suddenly living like a headline. And while some praised her strength, others couldn't shake the feeling that something about her comeback seemed too curated, too picture-perfect. Every time she stepped on stage, there was that same pattern. The dramatic music, the big smile, the polished delivery. It was giving Hollywood revival, not healing from heartbreak. Online users started posting side-by-side comparisons of her old speeches versus her new ones, pointing out how different her tone had become. "She used to sound like someone speaking from faith," one post said. "Now she sounds like someone reading from a script." That line went viral overnight. But the real spark came when people started digging into her calendar, noticing she was showing up at the same closed-door fundraisers as J.D. Vance again and again. From Ohio to D.C., the overlap was undeniable. Every time J.D. made an appearance, Erika wasn't far behind. Photos surfaced showing them side by side, sometimes in the same color palette, almost matching unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, depending on who you ask. Soon, whispers online turned into full-blown discussion threads. Were they strategizing together? Was this some joint rebranding effort? Or was there something deeper going on between them that neither wanted to admit publicly? The theories exploded across Reddit and YouTube commentary channels, all speculating that maybe Erika's sudden shift from widow to public powerhouse wasn't random at all. And it wasn't just her vibe that changed. It was her circle, too. Erika started showing up with new faces, influencers and personalities that didn't quite fit her old image. Gone were the quiet church friends. In came media strategists, stylists, and a whole new entourage that screamed, "Career reboot." Her look got sharper, her speaking gigs got flashier, and even her captions started reading like they came straight from a PR playbook. That's when people really started connecting dots between her and J.D. Vance again. Because his rise in national politics had taken on a similar glow-up energy. He went from small-town stories to polished television appearances, high-end suits, and perfectly rehearsed talking points. Together, they started to look like a brand. Two figures with perfectly aligned trajectories, conveniently crossing paths at just the right time. Coincidence? Maybe. But in the world of public perception, timing is everything. Meanwhile, every new rumor fed into the old ones. Remember that theory about them growing up in the same secluded community? It resurfaced again, now tied to this idea that both were chosen early on for something bigger. Some users called it destiny, others called it design. Either way, the mystery surrounding their shared roots started merging with the current storylines, turning speculation into an ongoing narrative that refused to die. Erika's body language at events didn't help either. Viewers picked apart every smile, every glance, every moment she leaned toward JD during a panel discussion. In one viral clip, she laughed at something he whispered, and for a split second, it looked like her hand brushed his arm. That 2-second clip got replayed thousands of times, slowed down, analyzed, and captioned with comments like, "Look at that chemistry." Even her silence became suspicious. When asked about JD directly in one interview, she smiled, paused, and said, "We have mutual respect." That pause alone became a meme. But it wasn't all conspiracy and gossip. There were people genuinely defending her too. Supporters argued that she was doing exactly what anyone in her position should: staying active, focusing on purpose, turning pain into productivity. "You don't get through tragedy by hiding," one supporter wrote. "You get through it by standing up again." And that's fair. But at the same time, her critics weren't buying it. They said her brand of resilience felt too commercial, too packaged for sympathy and success. By this point, the internet had basically divided into two camps: the believers and the skeptics. The believers saw Erika as a woman who rose from heartbreak stronger than ever. The skeptics saw her as a performer who turned grief into a storyline. And right in the middle of it all was JD Vance, staying composed, never addressing the rumors directly, just smiling through it like he'd trained for this kind of storm. Then came the resurfaced audio clip, a voice that sounded eerily like Erika's speaking about learning to detach from the old version of myself. No context, no source, just an audio leak posted late at night that spread like wildfire. Some people said it was from a private workshop. Others claimed it was AI-generated. But the message itself sent chills through comment sections. Detach from the old version. Fans started asking, was she talking about grief, or was she hinting at an entirely new identity? By now, the story wasn't just about Erika and JD anymore. It had become a mirror for how the internet treats public grief, image, and power. Every small action became a headline. Every silence became an answer. Erika's evolution had turned into a public case study in reinvention, one that blurred the lines between authentic recovery and strategic rebranding. Still, one undeniable truth remained. Whatever people think of Erika Kirk, she's not fading into the background anytime soon. Whether it's calculated or just coincidence, she's standing in the spotlight. And JD Vance seems to always be somewhere nearby, intentionally or not. As the speculation continues, one thing is certain. Both of them have mastered the art of staying relevant in a world where every gesture can go viral and every rumor can become tomorrow's headline. By the time the dust started to settle, Erika had already transformed into a completely different kind of public figure. What once looked like a grieving widow trying to heal now resembled someone stepping deeper into influence, strategy, and control. Every new appearance felt calculated. Every quote, every outfit, every event invitation seemed to feed the same question the internet couldn't let go of. Who is the real Erika Kirk? In the weeks following the Nicki Minaj event, her energy shifted again. Gone was the tentative tone, the emotional vulnerability replaced by sharp confidence and media polish. Her interviews started sounding less like spontaneous conversations and more like scripted monologues, carefully balancing personal faith with political positioning. It was as if she'd been training for this spotlight her entire life, and now she was ready to own it. People online noticed immediately. Threads popped up comparing her phrasing from old faith talks to her recent press clips. One user wrote, "She used to sound like a pastor's wife. Now she sounds like a campaign manager." That comment wasn't meant as an insult, but it spoke volumes about how drastically her public persona had shifted. Erika had gone from spiritual figure to strategic operator seemingly overnight, and as much as she insisted that she was only focused on legacy work, critics weren't convinced. Then came the charity gala, the moment that reignited every rumor all over again. Erika arrived late, wearing a gold satin gown that made every headline the next morning. JD Vance was spotted across the room, and according to witnesses, the two greeted each other briefly before disappearing behind a side curtain for a few minutes. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just a private chat. But that didn't stop social media from running wild. Within hours, clips and blurry photos filled every gossip page with captions like, "Too close for comfort," and "Off the record meeting." For weeks, the speculation refused to die down. And the more Erika ignored it, the louder it grew. Silence, after all, can speak volumes in the public eye. Every no-comment interview, every cryptic post about trusting divine timing only fueled the story further. Her refusal to clarify anything became its own kind of statement, one that people could interpret however they wanted. Behind all the gossip, though, a bigger narrative was forming. Commentators started suggesting that Erika was no longer just reacting to events, she was steering them. Her public forgiveness speech, her perfectly timed appearances, even the alleged tension with other conservative women in her circle, it all fit into a pattern of someone reclaiming control of her story before anyone else could define it for her. And whether that was deliberate strategy or sheer instinct, it worked. Her name was everywhere again. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance continued playing his part quietly. Steady, composed, never confirming or denying anything. When asked about Erika during an interview, he simply smiled and said, "She's doing important work." That one line was all it took to set social media ablaze again. Commenters flooded threads with reactions like, "Important to who?" and "Sounds like code for something." At this point, their connection had evolved into an unsolved mystery that fans couldn't stop picking apart. Some swore it was a political mentorship. Others hinted it was personal. A few believed they were simply products of the same ideological world, drawn together by shared experience and ambition. But no matter what explanation people offered, everyone seemed to agree on one thing: there was something there. The story became so big that even mainstream outlets started covering it not as gossip, but as a cultural phenomenon. They framed it as the intersection of image, faith, and influence in modern politics. How a woman could rebuild herself in real time while millions of eyes tried to decide what that transformation meant. And maybe that's the real power of Erika Kirk, the ability to stay unpredictable. One day she's a grieving widow, the next she's commanding a stage in designer heels, addressing crowds like a seasoned pro. Whether it's faith, ambition, or survival that drives her, nobody can quite pin her down. And maybe that's exactly how she wants it. Because in a world where perception is everything, mystery is her greatest weapon. And right now, Erika Kirk has mastered it. Every look, every pause, every perfectly timed silence keeps the internet guessing and keeps her name on everyone's lips. People started asking the obvious. Shouldn't we wait for the facts before jumping to conclusions? But then came the nonprofit twist, and that changed everything. Erika stepped in as CEO of Charlie's organization almost instantly. And while it's technically a nonprofit, everyone knows it still moves serious money, influence, and connections. So naturally, eyebrows went up. Was it just leadership continuity, or something that looked a little too much like consolidating power while emotions were still fresh? That single move set the internet ablaze again. Comment sections lit up with debates, some saying it made perfect sense for her to take over, others claiming the timing just felt off. It's not that she couldn't handle the job, it's that the speed of it all seemed almost rehearsed, like the next chapter had already been written before the previous one had even ended. And then came the moment that froze everyone: the Megyn Kelly interview. This was when Erika dropped something that left people stunned. Calm and composed, she mentioned that just weeks before Charlie's passing, certain donors had asked him a chilling hypothetical: "God forbid something happens to you, what happens next?" And according to Erika, Charlie allegedly replied that she would take over his work. But that's not what made jaws drop. It was what she said next. She claimed those same donors responded, "If something happens, investigate." Investigate. Weeks before everything went down. That detail alone sent shivers across social media. Because how do you even process that kind of timing? It's the kind of comment that doesn't just fade away. It lingers. It festers. It makes people start wondering if there was more being discussed behind closed doors than anyone ever realized. That's when speculation reached full force again. Was this a simple case of business contingency planning, or something that hinted at deeper conversations already in motion? Was Erika sharing this as transparency, or unknowingly confirming what people were already whispering about? For some, it felt like an eerie coincidence. For others, it sounded like preparation, as if certain people already knew there might be a change coming. And that's the part that has people still uneasy, still scrolling, still connecting dots that may or may not exist. Because at this point, the story isn't just about grief, or leadership, or even image. It's about perception. How timing, tone, and silence can turn into an entire narrative before anyone says a word. Erika's rise from mourning widow to commanding CEO became more than a personal journey. It became a cultural flashpoint, forcing everyone to question what's genuine, what's planned, and what's still being hidden in plain sight. And the truth is, no matter where you stand on it, whether you think it's coincidence, calculation, or something in between, this story keeps evolving. Every new statement adds another layer. Every old clip suddenly sounds different, and every unanswered question keeps the mystery alive. So, what do you think? Is the Ohio theory just internet fiction? Or is there a hidden history between Erika Kirk and J.D. Vance that explains their unbreakable alliance? Was the "investigate" comment a warning or just a coincidence? I want to hear your theories. Drop a comment below and let me know. Do you believe Erika's rise to power was planned, or is she just a strong woman seizing the moment? And seriously, what did you make of that hug? If you want to stay updated on every twist, turn, and leaked clip in this saga, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We are following this story closely, and you do not want to miss the next update. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next deep dive.